She said, "I may not be worth much, but I'll spread my legs for a warm bed," to the lone cowboy. The sky above the western desert was dark and heavy. Thick clouds moved fast, covering the sun like a blanket. The wind was strong and cold, and it carried dust across the empty land. Far away, thunder growled like a warning. A storm was coming, and it was coming fast. A lone cowboy rode slowly across the dry land. His horse was tired, but he did not stop. The cowboy's name was not known to many people. He was just a traveler, moving from one place to another, doing small jobs to survive. He wore a worn-out hat, a dusty coat, and carried a small bag with his few belongings. His face showed signs of long days under the sun and long nights without rest. He looked ahead at the dark sky and knew he had to find shelter soon. The storm in this part of the land was dangerous. When it came without mercy. Rain would fall hard, wind would scream, and lightning would strike the ground like fire from the sky. After riding for some time, the cowboy saw something in the distance. It was an old wooden outpost cabin. The paint on the walls had faded long ago, and parts of the roof looked broken. Still, it was better than nothing. He guided his horse toward it, hoping it would stand strong through the storm. When he reached the cabin, he stepped down from his horse and looked around carefully. The place looked empty. No smoke from a chimney. No movement inside. Only silence and the sound of wind brushing through dry grass. He tied his horse to a wooden post and slowly pushed the door open. The door creaked loudly. Inside, the cabin was dark and dusty. There was an old table, a broken chair, and a small fireplace. It had likely been unused for a long time. The cowboy stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He took off his hat and shook the dust from it. Then he checked the fireplace and found some dry wood left behind. That was lucky. He started a small fire. Slowly the room became warm, and the light from the flames filled the space. The cowboy sat down near the fire, resting his tired body. Outside, the wind began to grow stronger. The storm was almost here. Minutes passed. The sky outside turned even darker. Rain began to fall, first slowly, then heavily. The sound of it hitting the roof was loud and steady. The cowboy watched the fire and listened to the storm. He was glad he had found shelter in time. But then, something changed. Through the sound of rain and wind, he heard another sound. At first, it was faint. Then it became clearer. It was the sound of footsteps in the mud, and then, a horse's tired breathing. The cowboy stood up slowly. His hand moved close to his belt, where his gun rested. He did not draw it yet, but he was careful. In this land, strangers rarely came without reason. The door shook as someone knocked weakly. "Please, let me in," a woman's voice said from outside. It was soft but tired. The cowboy did not answer immediately. He looked at the door, then at the fire, then at the shadows around him. The storm outside was getting worse. No one could survive out there for long. Another knock came. Stronger this time, but weaker in strength. "I just need shelter, for the night," the voice said again. The cowboy took a slow breath. He was used to being alone. Trust was not easy for him. The world had taught him that kindness could sometimes bring danger. But the storm outside was real, and the voice sounded human, not a trick. Finally, he walked to the door and opened it. A woman stood there. She was soaked from the rain. Her clothes were torn in places, and her hair stuck to her face. She looked exhausted, like she had traveled a very long distance without rest. Her hands were shaking from the cold, and she held a small worn bag close to her side. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The cowboy studied her carefully. She did not look dangerous, but she also did not look safe. There was fear in her eyes, and something else. Something like she had been running for a long time. "I won't cause trouble," she said quietly. "I just need a warm place. Until the storm passes." The cowboy looked at the dark desert behind her. Rain was falling harder now. The wind was pushing everything in sight. No other shelter was near for miles. After a long silence, he stepped aside. "Come in," he said finally. The woman hesitated for just a second, then stepped inside the cabin. The cowboy closed the door behind her. The fire crackled between them, casting moving shadows on the wooden walls. Outside, the storm roared like a living beast. Inside, two strangers sat in silence, both unsure of what the night would bring next. The storm outside the old cabin grew stronger as the night went on. Rain hit the roof like heavy stones, and the wind shook the wooden walls. The fire inside the cabin burned low, but it still gave enough light to see the faces of the two strangers sitting near it. The cowboy sat on one side of the fire. His posture was straight, but his eyes showed tiredness. He kept one hand close to his belt, not because he wanted trouble, but because the world had taught him to never fully relax. Across from him sat the woman. She was still wet from the rain, but the warmth of the fire was slowly bringing color back to her face. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Only the sound of burning wood filled the space between them. It was a quiet, heavy silence, like both were thinking carefully before trusting words. The cowboy finally broke the silence. "You picked a bad night to travel," he said in a calm voice. The woman gave a small, tired nod. "I didn't have a choice," she replied softly. Her voice was weak, but steady. The cowboy looked at her for a moment. "Most people out here always have a choice," he said. "Just not always a good one." She did not answer right away. Instead, she looked at the fire as if it had answers she was trying to find. Then she said, "Sometimes, the bad choice is the only one left." The cowboy did not respond. He had heard many people say things like that before. In his experience, people often carried stories they did not want to share. And in the West, asking too many questions could sometimes bring trouble. Still, something about her felt different. She was not acting like a thief or a trickster. She looked more like someone who had been running for a long time and finally ran out of strength. The wind outside howled again, making the cabin creak. Dust fell from the wooden beams above them. The woman pulled her wet coat tighter around herself. After a few minutes, she spoke again, this time more carefully. "I did not mean to bring trouble to your door," she said. "I only needed shelter for the night." The cowboy nodded slightly. "Shelter is not free in this land," he said, "but I don't turn people away when the storm is killing them outside." The woman looked at him for the first time properly. Her eyes were tired, but there was something sharp in them too, not anger, but pain. "You don't ask questions?" she asked. "I do," the cowboy replied, "just not all at once." A faint, short silence followed. Then the woman let out a slow breath. "I was in a mining town," she said finally, "north of here." The cowboy did not interrupt. He only listened. "I worked there for a while," she continued. "Cleaning, carrying supplies, small jobs, nothing important." Her fingers tightened slightly around her bag. But things changed. Bad men took control of the place. They did not like people leaving, or talking. The cowboy stayed quiet, but his eyes became more focused. "I left when I had the chance," she said. "I did not take anything, I just ran." The fire popped softly, sending small sparks into the air. "I think they are still looking for me," she added after a pause. The cowboy leaned back slightly. He understood now why she looked so tired. Running from dangerous people was never easy, and in the West, some men did not forgive easily. "You think they followed you here?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "I don't know. I hope not." The cowboy looked toward the door for a moment, as if checking the sound outside. The storm was still strong. No tracks would be easy to follow in this weather, but desperate men sometimes did not care about danger. He stood up and walked to the small window. Outside, everything was dark. Only rain and wind could be seen. The woman watched him carefully. "If I am a problem," she said quietly, "I can leave when the storm slows." The cowboy turned back to her. "Leaving in this weather is the same as walking into a grave," he said. She lowered her eyes. He sat back down near the fire. "You stay until morning," he said firmly. "After that, you decide what you do." The woman nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said. For a moment, the cabin felt calm again. But the silence was different now. It was no longer just two strangers sharing shelter. It was two people connected by uncertainty. Outside, the storm continued without stopping. Inside, the fire burned lower, and shadows moved slowly across the wooden walls. The cowboy looked at the woman again. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated for a moment, like she was not used to being asked that question kindly. Then she said softly, "Anna." The cowboy gave a small nod. "You can call me Cole," he said. Another silence followed, but this one was less heavy than before. Still, neither of them knew that the storm outside was not the only thing coming closer. The night had grown deeper, and the storm outside was slowly beginning to lose its strength. The heavy rain was still falling, but not as hard as before. The wind no longer screamed like before, but it still moved through the desert with a cold, uneasy sound. Inside the old cabin, the fire had become smaller. It burned low, but it still gave enough light for Cole and Anna to see each other clearly. The warmth of the fire made the small space feel safer, but the silence between them carried a new kind of tension. Anna sat close to the fire, her hands now dry but still shaking slightly. Cole sat near the door, as if he never fully left his guard down. He had not asked her more questions after she told him her name, but his mind was still working. In his life, silence often meant something was not finished yet. Anna looked tired, but she could not sleep. Every small sound outside made her look up. She knew what it meant to be followed. That kind of fear does not leave easily. Cole noticed her restlessness. "You should try to rest," he said calmly. "Storm is calming now." Anna shook her head. "I can't," she replied quietly. "Not yet." Cole did not push her further. He understood that some people could not rest when danger was still close in their mind. The fire crackled softly. For a moment, everything seemed normal again. But then Cole heard something. At first it was faint, a distant sound buried under the wind. Then it came again, clearer this time. Hoofbeats. Cole stood up slowly. His hand moved near his gun, but he did not draw it yet. He walked quietly toward the window and looked outside. The storm had almost passed, but the land was still dark. The moonlight barely touched the ground. Through the rain and mist, he saw movement. 3 riders. They were moving slowly, carefully, as if they already knew where they were going. Cole's eyes narrowed. These were not lost travelers. Their movement was too controlled, too certain. He turned his head slightly toward Anna. "Do you expect anyone?" he asked in a low voice. Anna looked at him immediately. Her face changed. "No," she said quickly, but her voice did not sound confident. Cole stepped away from the window. "There are riders outside," he said. Anna stood up at once. "They found me," she whispered. Cole did not answer right away. He looked at her carefully. Now everything made sense. The fear, the running, the silence. The hoofbeats stopped outside the cabin. A deep voice called out from the dark. "We know you are in there." Anna stepped back instinctively. Cole moved slightly in front of her, not fully blocking her, but close enough to protect if needed. Another voice came. "We just want the woman. Give her to us and we leave." Cole stayed silent. Anna's breathing became faster. "Please, don't give me to them," she said quietly. Cole did not look at her yet. He was listening carefully outside. The men were close but not rushing. That meant they were confident. The first voice spoke again. "She stole from the wrong people. She belongs with us now." Cole finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "This land does not belong to anyone," he said, "and she is not your property." A short silence followed outside. Then one of the men laughed. "You don't know what you are stepping into, stranger." Cole replied, "I know enough." Anna looked at Cole with shock. "You don't have to do this," she said quickly. "They are not your fight." Cole glanced at her. "You came into my shelter," he said. "That makes it my business now." Outside, the men began to move. Slow footsteps circled the cabin. They were trying to surround it. Cole moved toward the door. He checked his gun once, then looked back at Anna. "Stay behind me," he said. Anna nodded, fear clear in her eyes. The door suddenly shook as someone pushed it hard from outside. "Last chance," a voice called. "Open the door." Cole did not answer. The silence inside the cabin became heavy again. The fire flickered as if it felt the tension too. Then, another push hit the door. Harder this time. The old wood creaked. Cole raised his voice. "Leave now," he said. "There is nothing here for you." Outside, the men stopped moving for a moment. The air felt still. Then one of them said quietly, "Break it." The next moment, everything became tense. The situation had turned from words into something far more dangerous. Anna stepped back slowly, her heart beating fast. Cole stood still, ready. The storm had passed, but something far more dangerous had arrived at the door. The cabin stood silent after the last command from outside. The wind had almost stopped now, and the storm had fully passed. Only small drops of water fell from the roof, and the desert outside looked cold and empty under the faint moonlight. Inside, the fire burned very low. Its light moved slowly across the wooden walls, making shadows look longer than they really were. Cole stood near the door, still and ready. Anna stood a few steps behind him, trying to control her breathing. The whole room felt tight, like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. Outside, the men were no longer speaking loudly. Now there was only quiet movement in the dark. They were preparing to act. Cole looked at the door. He knew men like this did not leave easily. They had come too far, and they believed they had power. But Cole had lived long enough in the West to know something important. Fear only worked on those who showed it. He turned slightly toward Anna. "Stay behind the table," he said in a low voice. Anna nodded quickly and moved back. Her hands were shaking, but she trusted him now. She did not know why, but she did. A hard knock hit the door again. "Open it now," one of the men shouted. Cole did not answer. The next moment, something heavy hit the door. The wood cracked slightly. Dust fell from the frame. Cole stepped forward and spoke clearly. Last warning, he said. Leave this place. Outside, there was a short pause. Then a rough voice answered. You don't understand who you are standing against. Cole replied calmly. I understand enough. For a second, everything became quiet again. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then suddenly, the men moved. One of them tried to break the door open with force. The old wood groaned loudly. Cole acted fast. He pushed the door open just enough to stop the break-in. The sudden movement surprised the men outside. They stepped back for a moment, expecting fear. But instead, they saw calm strength. Moonlight fell across Cole's face. He did not look angry. He did not look afraid. He simply looked ready. I am not your enemy, Cole said firmly, but I will not let you harm someone under my roof. One of the men stepped forward. He was taller than the others and carried confidence in his walk. She stole from powerful people, he said. She belongs to them now. Step aside. Cole shook his head slightly. No one belongs to anyone, he replied. The man's expression changed. He did not like that answer. Behind Cole, Anna watched everything, frozen. She had never seen someone stand like this against danger without backing down. The man raised his hand slightly, signaling his group. It looked like things were about to turn violent. But Cole spoke one last time. This ends here, he said. Walk away, and you leave with your lives. The tone of his voice was different now. Not loud, not aggressive, but final. Something in it made the men hesitate. The leader of the group looked at Cole carefully. For the first time, doubt appeared in his eyes. He was trying to decide if this man was worth the risk. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, the leader lowered his hand. We will not forget this, he said coldly. Cole did not respond. One by one, the men stepped back into the dark. Their footsteps slowly faded into the desert. No fight came, no shots were fired. Only silence remained behind them. After a few moments, they were gone. The night became quiet again. Cole slowly closed the door and secured it. He stood there for a moment, listening. There was nothing outside now except the soft wind. Anna finally exhaled, as if she had been holding her breath for a long time. Her body felt weak, and she sat down slowly near the wall. They are gone? She asked in a small voice. Cole nodded. For now, he said. Anna looked up at him. Why did you do that? She asked. You didn't even know me. Cole walked back toward the fire and sat down. He added a small piece of wood to keep it alive. The flames grew slightly stronger. Because you were here, he said simply. Anna stayed silent for a moment. Those words meant more than she expected. Outside, the desert was calm again. The storm had washed everything clean, but the night still felt heavy with what had almost happened. After a while, Anna spoke again. They will come back, she said quietly. Cole looked at the fire. Maybe, he replied, or maybe they learned something tonight. Anna studied him. You risked your life for a stranger. Cole gave a small shrug. In this land, strangers are just people you haven't known long enough. A faint silence followed. The fire crackled softly between them. Anna looked down at her hands. For the first time in a long time, she did not feel like she was running. Cole stood up and checked the door once more. Everything was quiet outside. When he turned back, Anna was still sitting there, but her expression had changed. The fear had not fully left, but something new had replaced part of it. Hope. Cole sat down again across from her. The night was not over, but something had already changed between them. Not trust yet, but the beginning of it. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly under the quiet sky. And inside the old cabin, two people who had started as strangers now shared something simple but rare in the Wild West. A chance to begin again.